So, Michael, when we broke, you had basically walked us through, and I appreciate it. I don't have the greatest of financial literacy. I think a lot of people listening get mystified by some of this stuff. A couple years back, UBS was issuing or underwriting, I should say, bonds, a wide variance of bonds on the island of Puerto Rico, ranging from municipal bonds and pension-backed payments bonds, and something went wrong with these bonds. People expected them to be safe investments. Why? Was it just simply when their clients bought these bonds that they just assumed that they were going to be safe investments? I mean, what happened?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. The clients didn't, and we represent, and we have represented hundreds of people who were in the same boat, who are clients of UBS, and actually there's other banks on the island who did the exact same type of a thing, particularly Santander Securities on the island operated a very similar business model, but this was not something that was assumed. These were marketed. These were marketed aggressively and marketed specifically in a certain manner, and that was that these were preservation of capital investments. That was the goal. If you opened up the first page of the prospectus, and I know no one's going to be excited about reading the prospectus, but it's right there on the first page. It says this is an income investment that's going to act consistent with the preservation of capital. And that's how you saw the financial advisors. That's how they were trained by management, is to sell these things, is this is the conservative way of doing it, and told to market these things as safe. So this wasn't an idea that all the clients and the customers just got together and assumed this. This was intentional. This is how these things were sold. This is how the investments were sold, and how the client base ended up so concentrated. We regularly see in these accounts 60, 70, 80, 90, up to 100% concentration in these types of investments. Not at all unusual to see 80, 90, 100%, because that's just what was recommended to these folks by their financial advisors. And it's not just one or two bad financial advisors. This really was the result of a conscious decision to have a business model that was built and revolved around these securities.
So when you say there's 100% concentration or any 90% concentration, you're saying that it is typical, particularly of, typical of people who are buying their financial products from an advisor to have a diversified portfolio. I may have some stocks, I may have some bonds, I may have some, real estate investments, I may have a couple of CDs, a varied type of investments in the event that one goes belly up, the rest are there. But you're saying that these clients, for some reason, had all of their eggs in one basket, and it was clearly because they were advised to do so by people that they trusted had their best interests in mind, but it turns out that they had a different set of interests in mind. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And you hit the nail on the head, Sam, because if you go around and read any book, Finance 101, it's don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's diversify. Look to asset allocation, diversification. That's the way to go. And you want to have a financial advisor who's going to be able to advise you exactly how to position that. And unfortunately, these investments were sold in a way that described them oftentimes, and they were often seen by the firm and marketed as a firm as diversified investments. So a lot of people had these thinking that they had a well-allocated portfolio or a diversified portfolio, when in fact they were extremely concentrated and exposed themselves to unnecessary risks as the risks increased, especially before the market crash in 2013 and 2012 and throughout 2013. UBS in particular became increasingly aware of the risks. So they gained more and more knowledge of risks increasing, and they had the opportunity to do right. They had the opportunity to tell their clients, to warn their clients that they were coming up over a cliff, and they chose not to.
All right. So what is behind that? Because they collect fees. Like, what is the at what point? Okay, so they saw that at one point, like, oh, this we have been pushing a specific product, and we have been overloading the portfolios of our clients with these products. What could they have done at that point? Just say, hey, maybe you should offload some of these?
And this is actually one of the points that will be made and has been made by a former employee of theirs. He said there was nothing they could do. At that point, it was to a level, because there's one other thing that I apologize I didn't mention about these, but those closed-end funds that I mentioned, they were only able to be sold to Puerto Rican residents. So they couldn't be sold anywhere outside of Puerto Rico. So the accounts had been loaded up to these to such an extent that there was nowhere for them to go. And actually, that's what one of the gentlemen who's somewhat of a whistleblower who used to work for UBS has said. He said there was nowhere to go. Everyone was trapped. If you told the clients the truth, it would be like yelling fire in a burning building. And some people would get out, but a lot of people would get burned.
And so ultimately, who came to you as plaintiffs or came to, what was the involvement of FINRA in this situation? Like, how does this case, what's the genesis of this case?
Yes, and it's once this manifested itself and once people began to understand what had happened, we've gotten many clients, and we continue to represent clients, Sam, in cases, and we have ongoing cases still with UBS, but we've tried this case that we just tried is our third case that we tried through a final arbitration hearing, which is just offering the exhibits just like you would see in a regular trial. So we had testimony from different witnesses over 3 full weeks, 35 arbitration hearing sessions, and our clients are just those people who went and entrusted their financial advisor. They went, asked their financial advisor what to do, got recommendations from them. These are people from all walks of life. Some are lawyers, some are doctors, some are people who worked blue-collar jobs and saved money their entire lives. We represent people across the gamut of all from all different places on the island, from different backgrounds, people who were born in Puerto Rico, people who were born in Cuba and came to Puerto Rico in the 60s, anything and everything, you name it, from young people, from people in their 20s and 30s, people who are in their 80s and 90s. So we've seen this literally affect everyone on the island because it really did permeate what the biggest brokerage firms on the island were doing in the business model that they operated. And so when you, as an investor, if you have a 401k, if you have an investment account, you would have signed on to an account opening agreement. And in that account opening agreement, there is an arbitration agreement, which says if you ever have a complaint, if you ever have something that you need to litigate with us about, you can't go to court. You can't go to state court or federal court, anything like that. You have to go to arbitration, and you have to go to FINRA arbitration. And FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, and based on case law around the country, that's where we file our claims. That's where we file the cases that we bring because of those arbitration agreements that clients are essentially forced to sign, and we litigate the claims there. And there's a lot of things about the process that I could make complaints about, and there's a lot to be done to make that a more fair process. But really, we feel like we stand as the people who represent the client as the way to protect these people against receiving a second injustice after they've already received bad advice, after they've already lost some money. What we do is we try to fight with them to give them a fair shake, to have their story be told and have the truth be told. And in this particular case that we tried, that's what we did. And the arbitrators, they awarded us full damages. They awarded every penny that we asked for, the full compensatory damages. They awarded attorney's fees and they awarded costs. And it was just a little bit over $19 million that was awarded in this case against UBS that UBS was ordered to pay.
Amazing story. Michael Bixby, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.